Apple just dropped a brand new iPhone 17 Pro, and what you have here is one of the biggest upgrades in an iPhone in a very, very long time. You get an all new design, upgraded camera system, and console level gaming. But there's one thing Apple never mentioned that we will in this review. The redesign of the iPhone 17 Pro is significant because you now get a, well, uglier looking phone, but when you have it in your hand, it's incredibly comfortable. It weighs just over 200 grams, around 205 grams roughly. And one of the key redesigns is this rear camera plateau. Now, this houses all of the main components within the iPhone 17 Pro, for example, things like the SoC. But the reason behind that is design choices, and that's because then it can house a larger battery inside. In fact, the 17 Pro has a 4252 milliamp hour battery. In fact, if you get an eSIM only version, you'll then get a few hundred milliamp hour more than the one that takes a physical SIM. I don't think that's an option in the US, but here in the UK, that is an option. The other advantage you have here is battery life has improved, but so has charging speed. So you now get roughly 45 watts of wired charging. This still lacks significantly behind what's coming out of China, which is over 100 watts, but 45 watts is still a good upgrade. And then if we flip to the front of the phone, here you get a 6.3-inch LTPO Super Retina XDR OLED panel with 3000 nits of peak brightness. Good Lord, that was long-winded. And what you get here is actually a punchy, brilliant phone display with great colors and contrast with tons of details, and actually makes an incredible viewing experience. The Pro models also benefit from an anti-reflective display as well for the first time, which is really, really good, but just not quite at the level of what you get in the S25 Ultra. Lastly, on the design point is, if you're someone who watches a lot of content on here and you're holding your phone in this aspect ratio here, as you can see, you will actually block the outward firing speaker. So you actually need to flip it the other way around like this, which isn't as comfortable, to be able to use it and still get sound coming out of the bottom of the phone. We all know that the A19 Pro in this phone is going to be an absolute monster, but when it comes to its performance testing, is it? Well, if you run it through 3D Mark's Lifestyle Extreme Test, then what you'll find here is a CPU that will actually throttle somewhat under heavy load. In fact, if you're running it through the life cycle, what the key findings I found that was super interesting is when it comes to heat dissipation, that new vapor chamber is doing an excellent job, because this will only heat up to around about 41 degrees. The Honor V5 that we reviewed recently shot over 50 degrees. So that gives you an idea as to how that vapor chamber is working for the heat dissipation and how well managed the heat in general is on the iPhone 17 Pro series, which is great. And then when you're gaming on here, any high performance gaming, you're gonna get a super immersive experience. Zero slowdown, jitters, checkerboarding, drop frames, none of that will happen on here. You can get and simulate a really great console level gaming experience, not only in terms of graphics, but also in terms of its FPS performance. iOS 26, more specifically Liquid Glass, has gotten a ton of attention over the last few months, well, since WWDC, and it is a great overall experience. Transition between apps are super, super smooth, snappy, no issues at all. Animations are classic Apple in a refined, beautiful way that people will eventually copy, of course, but it looks really, really good and functions incredibly well. There's tons of customization options, and the ProMotion display adds so much to the phone that it makes a super fun, easy to use experience when you're navigating around iOS 26 and Liquid Glass. However, there are a few concerns. When we started this phone up and started using it, and this is post recent update, we still had quite a few crashes on some apps within the settings, and they'll just boot you out and take you to the home screen for some random reason. And that is because Liquid Glass is actually extremely demanding, and all those animations and transitions, which are all new, are actually taking a lot out of the CPU and GPU, which is something to factor in. Also, readability. If you're in the App Store and you're just scrolling and you hit the search bar at the bottom, you'll notice that some of the text that sits behind the search bar is actually coming through the search bar. It can be quite confusing and actually makes it a little bit of a dodgy experience and takes some time to get used to. Two of those things we'd like to see change. Now, the big thing that Apple spent zero time almost mentioned or even talking about was its development around AI and Siri. This wasn't mentioned in any capacity at all throughout its conference announcing the 17 series. In fact, there's no real development here. You still push the button and you get Siri, you still hold it down, which will take you to ChatGPT, when it can't search on device, and then you still get visual intelligence. But those two areas work well, but there's been no development in any way, shape, or form, which is a shame, because when you compare it to brands such as Samsung and Galaxy AI, there's been huge ongoing developments there and almost nothing on the iPhone. The iPhone 17 Pro has the best ever camera system found on an iPhone, because you now get triple 48 megapixel sensors, which is wide, telephoto, and ultra wide. And then the front camera, let's quickly touch on that, is an 18 megapixel square center for center stage. Now, what this is super smart is what it'll do, it'll actually simulate a ultra wide or wide angle experience without having to actually tilt your phone. It's super cool, great software, and is done through that square lens. Now, the main sensors on the back will actually rival any phone out there. But how do they compare to something like an S25 Ultra, which will be its most global, universal sort of competitor? Well, the cameras in the rear match, as we said, anything. And we prefer the style of the iPhone over the Samsung S25 Ultra, primarily because it's more balanced and detailed, and the images look more real to life. In terms of telephoto though, the S25 Ultra, far further up the zoom lenses, does look better. But let us know in the comment section below your thoughts on the cameras between the iPhone 17 Pro and the S25 Ultra. The iPhone 17 Pro is a must-have smartphone in 2025. It's right up there with the best we've reviewed this year, but there are some issues. As we mentioned, there's been a lot of headlines around AI and the lack of implementation and progression for Apple. They've been losing engineers all day, every day, to people like Meta, for example, and OpenAI all the time, which is a shame. And then you've got Liquid Glass running on iOS 26. It looks really good and operates really well, but there are the odd occasions of crashes, etc. Both of those components, I think, over the next 12 months will be fixed. The iPhone 17 Pro is going to be a great phone. You get that excellent 3000 nits of OLED panel on a 6.3 inch OLED display, and obviously with Apple's tint on top. And then you got one of the best camera systems you can buy right now. So the iPhone 17 Pro is a no-brainer if you're looking for a new iPhone. If you bought one recently, I don't know if it's worth it, but if you're on the later one, say a 13 or 14, you're looking to upgrade, definitely get the iPhone 17 Pro. But let us know in the comment section, if you do have an existing iPhone, is this enough of an upgrade for you to move to, or are you waiting for the AI components to arrive next year before you make the jump and upgrade? Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, as always, we out.